Hey everyone, I wanted to show you what goes behind making the paper puppet that I use for Some People's World and is the more established version of what I used in the Del Lago layover demo. Now I kind of wanted to leave these guys here so you can see them looking around at each other um, because there's a lot of layers to this, so I thought it would be fun just to see kind of the stuff that's really sells certain things, but is so minute and small compared to kind of the enormity of solving this. So this is a work in progress. We're going to do plenty more on it. This was me doing this all on my own time, trying to build this up for a proof of concept. So I'm going to just get into it because there's lots of stuff. So first and foremost, what am I saying by paper puppet? Now, let me just squeeze a lot of this stuff out. That's nice. Um, if you look, you can see that they're made out of paper. You see. Um, Yep, they're just floating in space. I've been coining the term sprite cloud because all they are just literally individual sprites all floating together and stuck to a rig. So as you can see, there's all these bones. And can I do anything with them? Oh yeah, I can twist them, but then they animate back into place. Good. That means it's working. um, so, yeah, these are the paper puppets. So what are they? Well, they begin as a Photoshop file with a bunch of layers. So, I can go over to head and I can hide that. And if I zoom in, you can see that there's a white face with the head and you can't see any of it. And that's because all of this stuff is meant for tinting. Um, all the elements are white so that when you go into the game, you can, I wonder where this is. Let's see. Puppet. Here we go. So then this puppet has different colors and stuff like that. And this is actually a perfect segue into what is all of this stuff on the side. It's huge. It's huge. What is this? Well, it turns out that it's actually all the individual elements. Oh, it's highlighting down on this little bar down here. Hair, head, foreground arm, foreground leg. And so what these are, yeah, they're literally those sprite cloud pieces. So, this arm, background arm is the one that's pointing to the camera because it's the one in the back compared to his front. If I were to move forward, now we'd have the foreground arm is there. And so what this is doing is that in Unity, it's called sprite renderer, just a single sprite in 3D space. And then it's got an extra component called sprite skin. And what that is that it skins the sprite to the 2D bones here. And they are just 3D bones. They're just locked conceptually to a 2D axis. But the funny thing is as you can see, I am still using the three-dimensional axis to do everything. So it's kind of funny because there's nothing 2D about it. And you'll see the weird conundrums and why it's basically a 3D character. So along with that, you have these sprite puppet element, sprite resolver, and sprite library. These were things that I found anew so that I could do stuff with these characters in order to make different hairs and different eyes. There's a Wolfgang eye and a Hayes eye, and there's the lip with the line in through it like Hayes has, and there's the lip with no line through it like Wolfgang has. And all of that comes through these systems. I don't need to get into them. There's tutorials and dictionaries, documentation about it all. But I wonder if I can click it. If I go to, say, let's go to torso. Chest close. Let's do chest close. Oh, here we go. So in the resolver, I can choose tank top forward. Yeah, front or not front forward. Tank top front or away. So then that's if you're turned away, and that's if you're forward. So if I turn away, see it flips back and forth. So I think this is another great segue. So it flips back and forth. What is that? If you noticed a little bit earlier, I was looking around, but there was this blue arrow. Now, what is the blue arrow? The blue arrow actually is the player. Now, if you're a game developer, you know that that's the capsule. Let's go find the capsule. This capsule here, the tall but wide one with the central one inside of it. This big one is interaction, but this guy is the capsule. So if I run this into Wolfgang, it'll push him, and it'll push his capsule. So turns out in modern video games, what you do is you decouple the actor, the puppet, from the actual unit, the player, the thing that moves, the thing that has physics, the thing that bumps around. The only thing that is in this game world running and going up these stairs really fast is the capsule. And within it is imprisoned this little actor guy, the paper puppet. And there's all sorts of things that the paper puppet is doing that has nothing to do with the capsule. So the capsule's just turning, right? But for some reason, the paper puppet is clicking around, it's twisting, it's spinning. And one of the cool things you can notice is the paper puppet is actually in forced perspective. So when I move this camera, all of the puppets in the world point to the camera, and this is what makes them seem solid all the time. But if that's the case, then there's always a different side of the character pointing to the camera, like in 3D, even though there's a 2D paper that literally has no back or front. If it's pointed back, it's all pointed back. It's never not pointed back. And if it's pointed front, it's never not pointed front. And in fact, it's kind of funny. It looks fine from the front when it's pointed towards the invisible camera that's over there. But from behind, everything is still layered on top of each other as if they're pointed towards that camera. But they stack and make weird illusions and stuff where, you know, the hand is going into the distance, but it just looks like it's getting smaller and smaller. Because it's still on the foreground, because that's how 3D game engines work. They're stacked relative to where they're supposed to be in front of this camera, this important one. So how do we do it? Well, let's see if I can find the camera. Can we see it? Oh, here we go. This camera has a forward point. You can see it pointed that way. Let's see. It's not this, it's the camera. See, it's pointed that way. The blue is pointed this way. And the character's blue is also pointed that way. So what the puppet does, it's called the where is it? The puppet perspective rotator is that it actually takes those two pointing arrows and compares them together and goes, am I looking away with the camera? Then point me so the camera's behind me. Am I looking opposite of the direction that whoa, where's the camera? Oh, here we go. Am I looking opposite to the camera? And it's like, not quite. See if I nudge it a little bit more. I'm in the quarter of the camera that's forward and towards it. And so in doing this, I have a character that moves and rotates to perspective while still forcing perspective visually to the camera and all sorts of things therein. So this is crazy. We're getting into the depths of it. Now, why is it that when I'm turning and when everyone's turning, the character goes a little bit flat? Not the ears, but the whole physique of the character. Let's see if I do it over here and go a little bit extreme. Anyways, you can usually see quite a papery feeling if I rotate the camera. And, oh yeah, see when I turn, I get all tilty. Well, that's because this is an additional layer that I did after I made the tracking of the follow, is that the puppet has a rotate to camera, but it also has a rotate speed. It also has things called like the backward offset. So it's not just pointing to the camera, it's pointing to, according to this one, minus 1.5. So it's 1.5 meters behind the camera. And all of this does is so that if I can get these guys into a nice extreme angle, haze is actually rotated a little bit more to the outside of the camera than to the dead center. And we're pointed more to the dead center because actually perspective-wise, the line we're tracing towards behind the camera is through the camera. So that difference in that haze is pointed past the shoulder of the camera versus these focal characters being through the middle pushes those perspective edges and really makes the paper show through, which brings out the depth because it forces you to see where the depth is starting to break apart because the characters are flat instead of full of volume as they would if they were 3D characters. But we're emulating the volume by driving them through depth to still take up some of that capsule of space. So, talking about more complicated small little nudges, this is the animator. Let's see, is this the animated? No, here we go. No pose. The animator here has our skeleton. And what this is a skeleton base. This sets the shoulders to where they need to be, the neck to where it needs to be, all sorts of things like that, and was allowing me to do kids and adults in Del Lago, just sliding the shoulders down, forward, back, and right. And then there's the skeleton height. This is something that I added as a later feature, and what it does is based off of a value that I can set in the character customizer, body, I can change this blend tree, which blends between short, medium, and tall, and changes the character. So let's say I go really itty bitty. Funny how the camera still follows my character, and also the characters will look down at my character. Now this is something that you have to add in to your game. Most games, because they make the characters all about the same height, just sets the camera to a static tallness, which is enough to look up at guys. But because I wanted to make character customization as well as different subjects, so not you but the NPCs of different heights, I needed this whole system to properly and dynamically handle different scaled characters. So this comes from where are we? Dynamic bones, where are you? Head focus. I put a focus in their faces that when it collides with other systems, and other systems collide with it, you get all sorts of tracking and data about what's around you in order to track things. So tracking with the eyes can track up and down to the target, but also the camera can track to whatever its character's head is rather than anything else. So one of the fun side effects, and by fun I mean very, very difficult to manage in a game design sense, is that if you leave the camera to be too responsive to this, you'll notice that it's kind of hard to see, but the camera bobs up and down. If you look at the top line of, say, this bar, it goes whoop, 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 whoop. And that comes from the fact that the head in the animation is moving up and down and up and down and up and down. So there's all sorts of ways that we should fix that, and that would be a bug that you put on your tracking software. So all of these things coalesce into a pretty comprehensive character. There's other things like, like the eye jitter makes the eyes tremble regardless of what they're looking at, so that's a combination thing. I have physique offsets. This one's a fun one that I haven't gotten too far into, but if I go and I change myself to pear shape, I'm in pencil shape right now, but I can go to, and I'll make myself bigger. Oh no, my body. I've been working on stuff, so it's not working right now. But it makes my shoulders go narrower and my hips go wider, and then when I go back to pencil, my shoulders widen again, and stuff like that. So these are all sorts of ways that I'm creating to make it so that you can have one character skeleton and one set of physiques, poses, facial expressions, eyes, hair. I can go over here. Oh, haha, now I've got some short shorts. That's so funny, because my thick thighs are gone. That's fun. So I can put pants on. I can change my shirt. I can go back over here and give myself some Wolfgang hair attributes. Wolfgang hair. And this allows for one art pass of animation and stuff to essentially factor every character. Of course, there's going to be some extremes that we have to factor for, but this is already showing to be a lot. Another thing, head look, the look blend is look up, down, left, and right. And as the arrow rotates in the quadrants, the 4 quarters, it actually makes the eyes and ears and face and stuff swing with those blends, and that's what makes the character look like they're rotating in all 360 degrees, despite popping in the quarters of look left, look right, look towards, and look away. And this system, of course, can be expanded to have a look directly forward, look directly to the side, and have all of the different illustrative permutations therein. Of course, it leads to a bigger workflow because every direction you add adds a new graphic you have to factor and something that you have to change into and set as part of the clothing systems and set as part of the face and hair systems and stuff like that. So then this forced diagonal works great because all I have to do is 2, forward and away. And then all you do is you mirror it to go the other way and do the math to make it swing properly. I love that. Let's watch their eyes swing. Oops. Oh, come on. Oh, yeah. Pew, pew, pew. And notice the ears flop and the hair wobbles a little bit and stuff like that. And that's the wonderful thing about using a 3D game engine, is that you can use all sorts of physics and programming and stuff to make this stuff do the stuff for you without having to hand animate it. And the more and more you utilize these stackings, these layers, these combinations, you can realize a more rich and complicated character that breathes a deeper and deeper life into, see, like the moment they engage with you, you go, oh, there they are, they see me. And that sells such a deep and rich character just in that they seem present and there, that from these underlying details that give them form, presence, volume, a brain behind the head. So do everything else. So does all the other attributes and features you're trying to build out of the narration, the narrative and the story and the plots and the cutscenes. So too do they develop and have a deeper richness. I wanted to, just for the sake of it, I'm going to pull up OBS here just to turn up the audio a little bit. I just wanted to show you a vocal performance that goes on top of the eye tracking and stuff like that. Now, this isn't going to be very high depth because I'm still working on it for other purposes. But watch the eye tracking, listen to the sounds. Oh, yeah, you're getting the sounds. There's a pose change. Interesting, though, that they, when they turn their heads, they can't track with their eyes properly. That's a mathematical problem. But see how when the camera turns, they flip, and, you know, there's all sorts of little fun things to this. You hear them crying, I want to make them pose for that stuff and things like that. So then, as you can see, just the fact that they're tracking and looking at each other's eyes and their faces and stuff, as opposed to, say, Hayes in the background there just staring blankly forward. The fact that they're there actually sells a lot more. And so everything that I've been trying to show you has been technical boundaries, but also conceptual boundaries that are all oriented around how do you sell the character behind the puppet, because the puppet is just this dumb idiot that follows Capsule. So even though you're sitting there tackling challenges that originate from how do you make the character rotate to the camera, and how do you slow it down so that it gives a fun effect. The slowing it down to give a fun effect only came because I identified that I needed a fun effect that better sells that papery feel, because the papery feel is unavoidable, so might as well lean into it. So then that was a design choice that then spoke to a need for engineering, and then that engineering spoke to a need for design to implement it in ways that actually deliver those things. So, you know, in order to realize the depth and the stacking and stuff, you have to walk in the game, and you have to walk left, right, forward, back, left, right, forward, back. Push those things. Watch his face breach the extent of his face. Watch his ears breach the extent of his ears, and start tuning those. This is something that you could do as a character artist as well in this case, but it's something that doesn't necessarily need to be on the position of the programmers that make these systems. Yeah, you can make something that slow rotates, you can make something that fast rotates, you can make something that blends to rotate, and you can make something that programmatically rotates the thing in space. In fact, sometimes with something like this, like a paper character, you need to make things counter rotate, because if something's rotating, it'll start twisting everything else, and you want it to not twist. So in this case, I don't need to counter rotate because everything is constantly force rotating towards the camera. But those are all things that are valid and things that can be systemically done, but have to be designerly chosen to solve this particular instance of needs. So having the characters look at you when you get within range of them is a very significant thing, because when I breach out of them and I turn around, they just look vacant and empty. They're just looking arbitrarily, they don't have any sense of anything, they don't change, they don't look at anything else because they've got nothing to look at. And all of a sudden it's like, wow, what are these completely... Well, I mean, the fact that their eyes twitch around actually still sells them a little bit, and the fact that they breathe and move a little bit. Let's see how subtly that is. Very, 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 very gently moving. And so these are all those tiny little things that even in a prototyping paradigm are already bringing out a deeper characterization and experience that will be more emboldened by the content that then rides on top of these systems. So I think that's probably a good end point here. I could get into all sorts of little nitty-gritty things, talking about how do you change those pools and how do you do all sorts of stuff. So I mean, if you want to know about the data structures and the systems of passing things to and fro, I wanted to take it away from the technicalities and more into the problems and their solutions and why you wanted to solve them in the first place. So hopefully this shows all sorts of cool layers that as you added them and as you refined them, they all stack together to make one cohesive experience. And perhaps this gives you better insights on how to break those things down into singular steps that then compound into a whole thing. Look at them just staring off into oblivion. They're not even looking at each other. Ta-da, there he goes. Hi, Hayes. Hi, Wolfgang. So I hope that gives you something to think about, look into, and of course, this was my first test on this. I wanted to do, more in depth in these types of videos. As I get better, I can definitely do it more like an essay with some structure and stuff, but I'm flying off the seat of my pants, so hopefully this was still entertaining, still compelling, and please let me know other topics that you'd like to address, things that you may have seen in this that you'd like to know more about, and I've got some other stuff to share. I want to show about how how I've constructed that Babel system that I give you a little tease about, but that will be on a different video, so thanks for coming on. And I hope to see you again. See you guys.